Welcome, everyone. Today, I want to share with you the thrilling and spine-chilling story of the Witch's Revenge, a supernatural journey that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Let me take you back to how it all began and how I met my incredible partner, Elliot Brooks. I moved to the United States from Spain to pursue a career in law enforcement, driven by a desire to solve the most perplexing mysteries and make a difference. Little did I know that my path would lead me into the realm of the supernatural. It was during a particularly baffling murder investigation in New Orleans that I first met Elliot. The local authorities were at a loss, and the bizarre nature of the murders defied all logical explanation. That's when Elliot, a seasoned detective renowned for tackling the inexplicable, was called in to assist. From the moment we met, it was clear that Elliot was different. He had a sharp mind, a keen eye for detail, and an unyielding determination to uncover the truth. Our partnership, born out of necessity, quickly evolved into a deep friendship built on mutual respect and trust. Together, we delved into the darkest corners of the supernatural, uncovering secrets that most people would never believe. One of our most harrowing cases brought us to Salem, Massachusetts. The town was gripped by fear as a series of gruesome murders unfolded, each victim marked with a pentagram. This led us to the chilling tale of Morgana Blackwood, a powerful witch seeking revenge from beyond the grave. With the help of local historian Abigail Turner and coven leader Alara, we embarked on a journey to break the curse that had plagued the town. Through perilous rituals and final confrontations, we faced Morgana's malevolent spirit and severed her connection to the living world. Our bond grew stronger as we emerged victorious, ready to confront whatever challenges the future might hold. In a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural is often blurred, it is up to us to stand as the last line of defense against the darkness. Join us as we unravel the thrilling story of the Witch's Revenge and discover the incredible journey of two detectives who dared to face the unknown. Salem, Massachusetts, 1965. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the cobblestone streets of Salem. The once vibrant town now seemed to hold its breath, shrouded in an ominous silence. As I stood at the edge of the town's oldest cemetery with my partner, Detective Elliot Brooks, I couldn't shake the feeling that something ancient and malevolent was lurking in the shadows. My instincts told me that this was no ordinary case. Elliot and I had been called to Salem to investigate a series of gruesome murders that had left the town in a state of panic. Each victim had been found with a pentagram etched into their flesh, a macabre signature that pointed to dark forces at play. The air grew colder as we walked through the cemetery's wrought iron gates, a thick mist swirling around our feet. "Looks like we're in for a long night," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "This place gives me the creeps." Elliot nodded, his jaw set in determination. "We need to find out what's going on here, Miguel. These murders, they're connected to something much bigger." As we made our way through the maze of tombstones, our flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing the overgrown vegetation and crumbling statues that marked the resting places of Salem's long-dead residents. The atmosphere was thick with tension, as if the very ground we walked on held the secrets of the past. Our investigation led us to the town's historical archives, a dusty old building that held records dating back to the town's founding. The musty smell of aged paper filled the air as we pored over documents, searching for any clues that might shed light on the recent murders. Elliot's fingers traced the faded ink of an ancient manuscript, his eyes narrowing as he read the words aloud. Morgana Blackwood, accused of witchcraft, sentenced to death. Her execution was carried out at the old oak tree in the town square. I leaned over, peering at the manuscript with interest. "Do you think her spirit could really be responsible for the murders?" Elliot sighed, rubbing his temples in frustration. "I don't know, Miguel, but there's definitely something connecting these deaths to her. We need to find out what it is." As we continued our research, we uncovered a chilling pattern. Each victim was a descendant of one of the town's original settlers, the very people who had accused and condemned Morgana to her fate. It was clear that the witch's spirit had returned to exact her revenge on the bloodlines of those who had wronged her. Our next stop was the town square, where the old oak tree still stood as a grim reminder of the past. The gnarled branches seemed to reach out like skeletal fingers, casting eerie shadows on the ground. My eyes were drawn to a particular spot beneath the tree, where the earth seemed disturbed. "Kneel down, Miguel," Elliot instructed, his voice steady but urgent. "There's something buried here." I knelt beside him, using my hands to scrape away the loose soil. After a few moments of digging, we uncovered a small, ornate box. It was old, its wood darkened with age, and it bore the same pentagram symbol that had been carved into the victim's flesh. Elliot carefully opened the box, revealing a collection of yellowed parchment and ancient trinkets. Among them was a faded portrait of Morgana Blackwood, her eyes seemingly alive with a malevolent glint. There was also a pendant, its surface etched with arcane symbols that sent a shiver down my spine. "This must be it," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "This is what she's after." Elliot nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to take this to someone who can help us understand what we're dealing with." Our search for answers led us to the doorstep of Abigail Turner, a local historian and expert on Salem's dark past. Her eyes widened in recognition as she saw the items we had found. "These belong to Morgana," Abigail said, her voice tinged with fear. "The pendant. It's said to amplify a witch's powers. If Morgana gets her hands on it, she'll be unstoppable." Elliot's jaw tightened with resolve. "We need to stop her, Abigail. Can you help us?" Abigail hesitated, her fear palpable, but she nodded. "Yes, I'll help, but we need to be careful. Morgana's spirit is powerful, and she'll stop at nothing to get what she wants." The three of us devised a plan to lure Morgana's spirit into a trap. We would use the pendant as bait, hoping to draw her out and banish her once and for all. But as night fell and the air grew colder, the tension in the room was almost unbearable. Elliot stood at the center of the circle we had drawn, the pendant glowing faintly in his hand. Abigail and I stood by, our eyes fixed on the darkness that seemed to close in around us. Suddenly, the air grew heavy, and a chill ran down my spine. I could feel her presence, a malevolent force that seemed to suck the very warmth from the room. Morgana's spirit materialized before us, her eyes burning with hatred. "You dare to challenge me?" Her voice echoed, cold and hollow. Elliot stood his ground, his voice steady. "You won't harm anyone else, Morgana. It's time for you to rest." With a flick of her hand, Morgana summoned a gust of wind that knocked Abigail and me off our feet. But Elliot held firm, his grip on the pendant unwavering. He began to chant the ancient incantation Abigail had taught him, his voice rising above the howling wind. Morgana screamed in rage, her form flickering and wavering as the spell took hold. The pendant in Elliot's hand glowed brighter, its light enveloping the witch's spirit. In a final, desperate attempt to break free, Morgana lunged at Elliot, her fingers like claws reaching for his throat. But it was too late. With a blinding flash of light, her spirit was banished, and the room fell silent. I rushed to Elliot's side as he collapsed to the floor, the pendant slipping from his grasp. Abigail joined me, her face etched with relief and concern. "We did it," I said, my voice hoarse with exhaustion. "We stopped her." Elliot nodded weakly, his eyes closing as he let the darkness take him. He had done what he had to do, but the cost had been high. The town of Salem was safe, but the memory of Morgana's wrath would linger in our minds for years to come. The next morning, as the sun rose over the town, the three of us stood together at the edge of the cemetery, the events of the previous night still fresh in our minds. The old oak tree seemed less menacing in the daylight, but the memories of what had transpired would never fade. "Thank you for your help, Abigail," Elliot said, his voice filled with gratitude. "We couldn't have done it without you." Abigail smiled weakly, her eyes reflecting the weight of our shared experience. "I just hope that Morgana's spirit can finally find peace." As we turned to leave, I couldn't help but glance back at the cemetery one last time. The town of Salem had faced its darkest fears and emerged victorious. But I knew that the world was full of mysteries and dangers that defied explanation. And as long as those threats existed, Elliot and I would be there to confront them no matter the cost. With a determined stride, Elliot led the way, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For in a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural was often blurred, it was up to men like Elliot Brooks to stand as the last line of defense against the darkness. The sun had barely risen over Salem, but Elliot Brooks and I were already hard at work. The events of the previous night still lingered in my mind, a haunting reminder of the darkness we had faced. We had banished Morgana Blackwood's spirit, but the threat was far from over. There was still the matter of the ancient amulet we had found, and its connection to the gruesome murders that had plagued the town. I sat at my desk, surrounded by stacks of documents and old manuscripts. Elliot was right beside me, his eyes scanning the text for any clues that might shed light on the amulet's significance. The pendant, with its arcane symbols and malevolent energy, seemed to hold the key to unlocking the mystery. "Any luck?" I asked, taking a sip of my coffee. Elliot shook his head, frustration etched into his features. "Not yet, but there's something here. I can feel it. This amulet, it's more than just a piece of jewelry. It's a conduit for dark magic." As we continued our research, we uncovered a series of disturbing connections. The amulet had been passed down through generations, each time falling into the hands of individuals who had dabbled in the dark arts. It was as if the pendant itself had a will, drawing its owners deeper into the realm of the supernatural. Our investigation led us to the town's historical society, where we hoped to find more information about the amulet's origins. The society's curator, an elderly woman named Agnes, greeted us warmly and led us to a dimly lit room filled with dusty tomes and artifacts. "I've heard about your recent encounter with Morgana's spirit," Agnes said, her voice tinged with both fear and curiosity. "I must say, it's been a long time since Salem has faced such darkness." Elliot nodded, his gaze fixed on a particularly old book that Agnes had placed before us. "We need to know more about this amulet and how we can stop it from causing any more harm." Agnes opened the book, revealing pages filled with intricate drawings and cryptic text. "The amulet is known as the Blackwood Pendant, a powerful artifact that Morgana herself created. It was said to amplify her powers, allowing her to perform feats of dark magic that were beyond the abilities of even the most skilled witches. As we studied the pages, we realized the true extent of the pendant's power. It was a vessel for malevolent energy, capable of summoning and controlling dark forces. The murders in Salem were not random acts of violence. They were part of a larger ritual to awaken the pendant's full potential. "We have to find a way to neutralize the amulet," I said, my voice filled with determination. "If it falls into the wrong hands, it could unleash a catastrophe." Elliot nodded in agreement, his mind racing with possibilities. "There must be a way to break its hold, to render it powerless." Our search for answers led us to the outskirts of Salem, where an old, abandoned cabin stood hidden among the trees. According to Agnes, the cabin had once belonged to a reclusive witch named Eliza, who had been rumored to possess knowledge of ancient spells and rituals. As we approached the cabin, the air grew thick with a sense of foreboding. The wooden structure was dilapidated, its windows shattered and its roof caved in. But there was something about the place that drew us in, a feeling that we were on the right path. Elliot pushed open the creaking door, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The interior was in disarray, with cobwebs hanging from the ceiling and dust coating every surface. But amidst the chaos, we found what we were looking for: a collection of spellbooks and potions, carefully preserved despite the passage of time. My eyes widened as I picked up one of the books, its leather cover embossed with strange symbols. "This might be it, Elliot. These spells could hold the key to neutralizing the amulet." Elliot carefully leafed through the pages, his fingers tracing the intricate illustrations and handwritten notes. The spells were complex, requiring precise ingredients and incantations. But there, amidst the pages, we found what we were looking for: a ritual to break the bond between the amulet and its dark energy. The ritual required a combination of rare herbs, sacred symbols, and a powerful incantation. It was a delicate process, one that would require both of us to perform with perfect precision. but it was our only hope of neutralizing the pendant's power. As we gathered the necessary ingredients and prepared for the ritual, the weight of our task hung heavily over us. We knew that failure was not an option, that the fate of Salem and possibly the world depended on our success. The night of the ritual arrived, and the cabin was filled with an eerie glow from the candles we had placed around the room. Elliot and I stood at the center of a circle we had drawn on the floor, the amulet placed carefully on an altar before us. With a deep breath, Elliot began to chant the incantation, his voice steady and commanding. I followed suit, our voices blending together in a harmonious yet haunting melody. The air grew thick with energy, the symbols on the amulet glowing with a malevolent light. As we chanted, the candles flickered and the room seemed to vibrate with an unseen force. The amulet pulsed with energy, as if resisting our efforts to neutralize it. But Elliot and I pressed on, our determination unwavering. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the cabin, extinguishing the candles and plunging the room into darkness. The amulet glowed brighter, its light casting eerie shadows on the walls. And then, with a blinding flash, the pendant shattered into a million pieces, its power dissipating into the air. Elliot and I collapsed to the floor, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. The ritual had worked, the amulet's hold had been broken. But as we lay there, exhausted and drained, we couldn't shake the feeling that our battle was far from over. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, we made our way back to Salem. The town seemed different, lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from its shoulders. But the memory of the amulet and the darkness it had brought would linger in our minds. Elliot stood at the edge of the cemetery, his gaze fixed on the spot where Morgana's spirit had been banished. I knew that there were still many unanswered questions, and that our work was far from finished. But for now, we had earned a moment of respite, a chance to breathe and regroup. As he turned to leave, I placed a hand on his shoulder, a small smile on my face. We did it, Elliot. We stopped the curse. Elliot nodded, his expression thoughtful. Yes, we did, but we need to stay vigilant. There are still dark forces out there, waiting for their chance to strike. With a renewed sense of purpose, we walked away from the cemetery, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For in a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural was often blurred, it was up to men like us to stand as the last line of defense against the darkness. And as we disappeared into the bustling streets of Salem, the town slowly began to heal, its residents unaware of the sacrifices that had been made to keep them safe. But we knew the truth, and we were prepared to confront whatever dangers the future might hold. For the curse had been unleashed, and our battle against the darkness was only just beginning. The events of the last few days weighed heavily on me as I stared out the window of our small office in Salem. The town seemed to have returned to its usual tranquility, but I knew it was just a fragile veneer. The dark forces we had encountered were still out there, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our battle was far from over. Elliot Brooks, my partner and the lead investigator, was busy reviewing the case files we had accumulated. His sharp mind and keen eye for detail were invaluable, but even he seemed troubled by the lingering sense of unease that hung over us like a dark cloud. We've neutralized the amulet, but I can't help but feel that something else is at play here, Elliot said, his voice tinged with frustration. We need to stay vigilant. I nodded in agreement, my thoughts racing. You're right. There's still a lot we don't know about Morgana's powers and the extent of her influence. We can't let our guard down. Just as we were about to dive back into our research, there was a knock at the door. Abigail Turner, the local historian who had helped us with the ritual, entered the room. Her face was pale, and her eyes were wide with fear. You need to come with me, Abigail said, her voice trembling. Something terrible has happened. Elliot and I exchanged a worried glance before following Abigail out of the office. She led us to the outskirts of town, where a small crowd had gathered. The scene before us was horrifying. Another victim, brutally murdered, with the now familiar pentagram carved into their flesh. This can't be, Elliot muttered, his jaw clenched. We destroyed the amulet. How is this still happening? Abigail's face was etched with fear and confusion. "I don't know, but there's something else you need to see." She led us to a nearby tree, where a piece of parchment was pinned to the trunk with a dagger. The parchment bore a chilling message, written in a language none of us recognized. Elliot carefully removed the dagger and handed the parchment to me. "We need to get this translated," I said, my voice steady despite the growing unease in my gut. "It might give us a clue about what's going on." Our search for a translator led us to Professor Henry Caldwell, a linguist and expert in ancient languages. He welcomed us into his cluttered study, where shelves overflowed with dusty books and artifacts from around the world. "This is an old dialect of Latin," Professor Caldwell explained as he examined the parchment. "It appears to be a warning, or rather, a threat." He read the message aloud, his voice tinged with gravity. "The curse is not broken. The dark power still resides within the bloodline. The witch's wrath shall be unleashed upon those who dare to defy her." Elliot and I exchanged a grim look. The curse was still active, and the threat was far from over. We had to find a way to stop it before more lives were lost. As we left Professor Caldwell's study, a sense of urgency gripped us. We needed to understand the full extent of Morgana's powers and find a way to break the curse once and for all. Our next stop was the home of Abigail's grandmother, a woman rumored to possess knowledge of ancient spells and rituals. Abigail's grandmother, Matilda, was a frail but formidable woman. Her eyes sparkled with wisdom as she welcomed us into her home, which was filled with the scent of herbs and the soft glow of candlelight. "I've been expecting you," Matilda said, her voice soft yet firm. "The curse that plagues Salem is older and more powerful than you can imagine. Morgana's spirit may have been banished, but her dark influence still lingers." Matilda led us to a small room at the back of the house, where a collection of ancient texts and scrolls was carefully arranged. She handed us a particularly old and fragile manuscript, its pages filled with intricate illustrations and handwritten notes. "This is the Grimoire of Shadows," Matilda explained. "It contains powerful spells and incantations, some of which are known only to a few. Among them is a ritual that can break even the most potent curses, but it comes at a great cost." Elliot's eyes narrowed as he examined the manuscript. "What kind of cost?" Matilda's gaze was unwavering. "The ritual requires a personal sacrifice. Someone must willingly give up a part of their soul to weaken the curse's hold. It is a dangerous and painful process, and not to be taken lightly." The weight of Matilda's words settled over us like a heavy shroud. We knew that breaking the curse was our only hope of stopping the murders and saving Salem, but the cost was a steep one. As we prepared for the ritual, the gravity of our task became more apparent. We gathered the necessary ingredients, each one carefully chosen for its magical properties. The ritual required rare herbs, sacred symbols, and a powerful incantation that had to be recited with perfect precision. Abigail stepped forward, her expression resolute. "I'll do it. I'll make the sacrifice." Elliot and I exchanged a worried glance. "Are you sure, Abigail?" I asked, my voice filled with concern. "This is a dangerous and painful process. There's no guarantee it will work." Abigail nodded, her eyes unwavering. "I have to do this. It's the only way to save the town and break the curse once and for all." With a deep sense of determination, we began the ritual. The cabin was filled with an eerie glow from the candles we had placed around the room. The air was thick with energy, and I could feel the weight of the dark forces we were about to confront. As Elliot and I chanted the incantation, Abigail stood at the center of the circle, her eyes closed in concentration. The symbols on the floor glowed with a malevolent light, and the energy in the room seemed to pulse with an otherworldly force. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the cabin, extinguishing the candles and plunging the room into darkness. The symbols glowed brighter, casting eerie shadows on the walls. And then, with a blinding flash, the energy in the room exploded, leaving us all gasping for breath. Abigail collapsed to the floor, her body racked with pain. Elliot and I rushed to her side, our hearts pounding with fear and concern. "Abigail, are you okay?" I asked, my voice trembling. She nodded weakly, her face pale and covered in sweat. I think so. Did it work? Elliot examined the symbols on the floor, his brow furrowed with concentration. I think it did. The energy feels different now, like the curse has been weakened. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, we helped Abigail to her feet and made our way back to Salem. The town seemed different, lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from its shoulders. But the memory of the amulet and the darkness it had brought would linger in our minds. Elliot stood at the edge of the cemetery, his gaze fixed on the spot where Morgana's spirit had been banished. I knew that there were still many unanswered questions, and that our work was far from finished. But for now, we had earned a moment of respite, a chance to breathe and regroup. As he turned to leave, I placed a hand on his shoulder, a small smile on my face. We did it, Elliot. We weakened the curse. Elliot nodded, his expression thoughtful. Yes, we did. But we need to stay vigilant. There are still dark forces out there, waiting for their chance to strike. With a renewed sense of purpose, we walked away from the cemetery, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For in a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural was often blurred, it was up to men like us to stand as the last line of defense against the darkness. And as we disappeared into the bustling streets of Salem, the town slowly began to heal, its residents unaware of the sacrifices that had been made to keep them safe. But we knew the truth, and we were prepared to confront whatever dangers the future might hold. For the curse had been weakened, but our battle against the darkness was only just beginning. The atmosphere in Salem had become eerily calm after our latest encounter with Morgana's curse. The townspeople seemed to be slowly returning to their normal lives, but there was a palpable sense of unease that lingered in the air. Elliot and I knew that our work was far from over. Despite weakening the curse, we had yet to fully understand its true nature and the extent of Morgana's wrath. Days turned into weeks as we continued our research. Our nights were spent poring over ancient texts, consulting with scholars, and uncovering every piece of information we could about the witch's dark powers. We had to be prepared for whatever lay ahead, and we knew that another confrontation was inevitable. One evening, as we sat in our office surrounded by books and notes, there was a sudden knock at the door. Abigail entered, her face pale and filled with urgency. "Elliot, Miguel, you need to come with me," she said, her voice trembling. "There's been another attack." We grabbed our coats and followed Abigail to the scene of the incident. The sight that greeted us was all too familiar, a lifeless body marked with the now familiar pentagram. This time, however, there was something different. The symbols seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, as if Morgana's power had grown stronger. "We can't let this continue," Elliot muttered, his jaw clenched. "We need to find a way to stop her, once and for all." As we examined the scene, a sense of urgency gripped us. We had to act quickly, before more lives were lost. Our investigation led us to the outskirts of Salem, where rumors of a hidden coven of witches had begun to surface. These witches were said to have ancient knowledge and powerful spells that could either aid us or hinder our progress. With Abigail's guidance, we made our way to a secluded clearing deep in the forest. The air was thick with tension as we approached a circle of standing stones, each one etched with symbols of protection and power. At the center of the circle stood a woman, her eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "My name is Alara," she said, her voice soft yet commanding. "I have been expecting you." Alara explained that she was the leader of the coven, a group dedicated to preserving the balance between light and dark magic. She had been aware of Morgana's return and the growing strength of the curse that plagued Salem. She offered her assistance, but warned that the path ahead would be perilous. "We must perform a ritual to weaken Morgana's power and sever her connection to the living world," Alara said. "But the ritual requires the combined strength of our coven and your own determination. Are you prepared for what lies ahead?" Elliot and I exchanged a determined glance. "We're ready," he said, his voice steady. Over the next few days, we worked closely with Alara and the coven to prepare for the ritual. We gathered rare herbs, created protective sigils, and learned the intricate incantations needed to channel our combined energies. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, and we knew that our final confrontation with Morgana was drawing near. The night of the ritual arrived, and the forest was shrouded in darkness. A circle of candles cast an eerie glow around the standing stones, and the air was thick with the scent of incense. Alara led us through the incantations, her voice resonating with power and authority. As we chanted, the ground beneath us seemed to tremble, and the symbols on the stones glowed with a fierce light. The energy in the air grew stronger, and I could feel the presence of something ancient and malevolent drawing closer. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing the candles and plunging us into darkness. Morgana's spirit materialized before us, her eyes burning with rage and hatred. "You dare to challenge me?" Her voice echoed, cold and hollow. Elliot stepped forward, his voice unwavering. "This ends now, Morgana. You won't harm anyone else." With a flick of her hand, Morgana summoned a torrent of dark energy that surged toward us. But the protective sigils we had created held strong, deflecting her attacks. Alara and the coven continued to chant, their voices rising above the howling wind. I joined the incantation, my voice blending with theirs in a harmonious yet haunting melody. The energy in the air seemed to pulse with each word, and I could feel our combined strength pushing back against Morgana's power. Morgana screamed in rage, her form flickering and wavering as the ritual took hold. The symbols on the stones glowed brighter, enveloping her in a blinding light. She fought back with all her dark powers, summoning shadows and spirits to impede our progress. But we pressed on, our determination unwavering. As the ritual neared completion, Morgana revealed a shocking truth. Her connection to the living world was anchored by a hidden artifact, one that had been passed down through generations of her bloodline. If we could find and destroy the artifact, we could sever her connection once and for all. Elliot's eyes narrowed with determination. "Where is it, Morgana? Where is the artifact?" Morgana's laughter echoed through the clearing, cold and malevolent. "You will never find it. It is hidden within the very heart of Salem, protected by those who would see my legacy preserved." With a final, desperate surge of energy, Morgana's spirit was banished, and the clearing fell silent. The symbols on the stones dimmed, and the air grew still. We had weakened her power, but the true source of her connection to the living world remained. As dawn broke, we returned to Salem, our minds racing with the implications of what we had learned. The artifact had to be found and destroyed, and we knew that time was running out. Our investigation led us to the town's oldest families, those who had been in Salem since its founding. We delved into their histories, uncovering secrets that had been buried for centuries. It became clear that the artifact was tied to one of these families, but finding it would require all of our skills and resources. As we worked tirelessly to uncover the artifact's location, the tension in Salem grew palpable. The townspeople sensed that something was amiss, and whispers of dark magic and ancient curses filled the air. We had to act quickly, before Morgana's influence could spread any further. Elliot and I focused our efforts on the Turner family, whose lineage was closely tied to Morgana's bloodline. Abigail's willingness to help and her own connection to the family made her an invaluable ally in our search. One evening, as we pored over old family records and documents, a revelation struck us. The artifact was hidden within the Turner family estate, concealed in a secret chamber that had been built to protect it from prying eyes. With renewed determination, we made our way to the Turner estate, accompanied by Abigail and Alara. The mansion loomed before us, its dark silhouette casting an ominous shadow over the grounds. We knew that our final confrontation with Morgana's curse was about to begin. Inside the mansion, we searched every corner, every hidden passage, until we finally discovered the entrance to the secret chamber. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding as we descended into the darkness, our flashlights cutting through the gloom. At the heart of the chamber, we found the artifact, a small, ornate box, its surface etched with arcane symbols. As we approached, the air seemed to hum with a malevolent energy, and I could feel the weight of Morgana's presence pressing down on us. Elliot carefully opened the box, revealing a collection of items that had once belonged to Morgana. Among them was a pendant, its surface glowing with an otherworldly light. This was the source of her connection, the anchor that tied her spirit to the living world. "We have to destroy it," Elliot said, his voice steady but urgent. "It's the only way to break the curse." As we prepared to destroy the pendant, the ground beneath us seemed to tremble, and a cold wind swept through the chamber. Morgana's spirit materialized before us, her eyes filled with rage and desperation. "No!" she screamed, her voice echoing through the chamber. "You cannot destroy it. My legacy will live on." With a fierce determination, we pressed on, chanting the incantation that would sever her connection once and for all. The energy in the air grew stronger, and I could feel our combined strength pushing back against Morgana's power. In a blinding flash of light, the pendant shattered into a million pieces, and Morgana's spirit was consumed by the resulting explosion. The chamber fell silent, and a sense of calm settled over us. We had done it. The curse was broken, and Morgana's influence had been banished from Salem. As we emerged from the chamber, the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, casting a warm glow over the mansion. Elliot, Abigail, Ilara, and I stood together, our hearts filled with relief and triumph. We had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but we knew that our work was far from over. There were still many mysteries to uncover and many dangers to confront. With a renewed sense of purpose, we walked away from the Turner estate, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For in a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural was often blurred, it was up to men like us to stand as the last line of defense against the darkness. And as we disappeared into the bustling streets of Salem, the town slowly began to heal, its residents unaware of the sacrifices that had been made to keep them safe. But as the town slowly began to heal, its residents unaware of the sacrifices that had been made to keep them safe. But we knew the truth, and we were prepared to confront whatever dangers the future might hold. For now, though, we could take solace in the fact that we had succeeded. The immediate threat to Salem had been eliminated, and Morgana's dark influence had been severed. The town was finally free from her malevolent grasp. In the days that followed, Elliot, Abigail, and I took time to reflect on our journey. We had faced incredible challenges, both physical and supernatural, and had come out stronger for it. Our bond as a team had been solidified, and we knew that we could rely on each other no matter what the future held. As the sun set over Salem, casting a warm glow across the town, we gathered at Abigail's home for a quiet celebration. Ilara and members of her coven joined us, their presence a reminder of the powerful allies we had gained along the way. "To victory," Elliot said, raising his glass, "and to the strength and courage of our friends." We clinked our glasses together, the sound a symbol of our unity and determination. We knew that this was just one battle in a larger war, but for now we allowed ourselves to revel in our success. As the evening wore on, we shared stories and laughter, the weight of the past few weeks beginning to lift. For the first time in what felt like forever, we allowed ourselves to relax and enjoy the moment. But even as we celebrated, I couldn't shake the feeling that our work was far from over. The world was full of mysteries and dangers, and we would need to be ready to face whatever came next. Later that night, as I stood on the porch and looked out at the town, Elliot joined me. The cool breeze carried the scent of pine and earth, a reminder of the natural beauty that surrounded us. "We've come a long way, Miguel," Elliot said, his voice thoughtful. "But I can't help but wonder what's next." I nodded, my mind racing with possibilities. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together. We've proven that we can handle anything, as long as we stick together." Elliot smiled, a sense of calm and resolve in his eyes. "You're right, and we'll be ready for whatever comes our way." As we stood there, side by side, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination. We had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but our journey was far from over. There were still countless mysteries to uncover and dangers to confront. And as long as we had each other, I knew that we could face anything. For in a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural was often blurred, it was up to men like us to stand as the last line of defense against the darkness. And with that, We turned and headed back inside, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The tranquil days following our victory over Morgana's spirit were short-lived. The town of Salem slowly began to heal, but beneath the surface, a new sense of unease simmered. Although we had severed Morgana's connection to the living world, we knew that her dark influence could still cast its shadow over us. It wasn't long before rumors began to surface. Strange occurrences, unsettling visions, and whispers of dark magic that suggested Morgana's legacy had not been completely eradicated. Elliot and I knew we had to act quickly before the remnants of her curse could take root and unleash chaos once more. One crisp autumn morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the leaves, Elliot and I stood at the edge of Salem's cemetery. The old oak tree, under which we had discovered the cursed amulet, loomed over us, its gnarled branches casting eerie shadows on the ground. "There's still something out there, Miguel," Elliot said, his voice steady yet filled with determination. "We need to uncover the final piece of this puzzle and put an end to it once and for all." I nodded in agreement, my mind racing with possibilities. "We can't let her influence spread any further. We have to find the source of these rumors and figure out what's happening." Our investigation led us to a series of unsettling incidents. Bizarre visions reported by the townspeople, sightings of ghostly apparitions, and an overall sense of dread that hung heavy in the air. It was clear that Morgana's presence, although weakened, still lingered in Salem. One afternoon, we received a visit from a young woman named Clara, who had experienced a particularly vivid and terrifying vision. Her face was pale, and her eyes were wide with fear as she recounted the details. "I saw her," Clara whispered, her voice trembling. "Morgana. She was standing in my bedroom, her eyes filled with hatred. She spoke to me, said that her revenge was far from over." Elliot's expression grew grave. "We need to find out where these visions are coming from and why they're happening. This could be the key to understanding how to finally break the curse." Our search for answers led us to a hidden chamber beneath the Turner family estate. With Abigail's help, we uncovered a series of old journals and manuscripts that had been passed down through generations of the Turner family. These documents held the secrets to Morgana's dark powers and the rituals she had performed to bind herself to the living world. As we delved deeper into the journals, a pattern began to emerge. Morgana had created a powerful artifact, a mirror, that allowed her to project her spirit into the mortal realm even after her physical form had been destroyed. This mirror had been hidden away, protected by layers of enchantments that made it nearly impossible to find. "This mirror is the key," Elliot said, his voice filled with determination. "If we can find and destroy it, we can finally put an end to Morgana's influence." Abigail nodded, her expression resolute. "We need to act quickly. The longer we wait, the stronger her connection becomes." Our search for the mirror led us to the old Blackwood Manor, a decaying mansion on the outskirts of Salem that had once belonged to Morgana's family. The air grew colder as we approached the mansion, and a sense of foreboding settled over us like a dark cloud. The interior of the manor was in ruins, its walls covered in dust and cobwebs. As we explored the decaying halls, we could feel Morgana's presence growing stronger, her malevolent energy seeping into every corner. In the heart of the manor, we discovered a hidden staircase that led to an underground chamber. The air was thick with the scent of mold and decay as we descended into the darkness, our flashlights cutting through the gloom. At the center of the chamber, we found the mirror, a large, ornate frame with a surface that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly light. As we approached, the air around us grew colder, and a chill ran down my spine. "This is it," Elliot said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We need to destroy it." As we prepared to shatter the mirror, Morgana's spirit materialized before us, her eyes burning with rage and desperation. "You dare to defy me?" she screamed, her voice echoing through the chamber. "My revenge is far from over." With a flick of her hand, Morgana summoned a torrent of dark energy that surged toward us. But we were prepared. Abigail, Alara, and the members of her coven had created protective sigils that deflected her attacks, allowing us to focus on our task. Elliot and I began to chant the incantation that would sever Morgana's connection to the mirror. The air grew thick with energy, and the symbols on the mirror's surface glowed with a malevolent light. As we chanted, the room seemed to tremble, and the mirror pulsed with dark energy. Morgana fought back with all her strength, summoning shadows and spirits to impede our progress. But we pressed on, our determination unwavering. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light filled the chamber, and the mirror shattered into a million pieces. Morgana's spirit screamed in agony as her connection to the mortal realm was severed, and the dark energy dissipated into the air. The chamber fell silent, and a sense of calm settled over us. We had done it. The mirror was destroyed, and Morgana's influence had been banished from Salem once and for all. As we emerged from the underground chamber, the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, casting a warm glow over the Blackwood Manor. The weight that had hung heavy over Salem was lifted, and a sense of peace settled over the town. Elliot, Abigail, Elara, and I stood together, our hearts filled with relief and triumph. We had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but we knew that our work was far from over. There were still countless mysteries to uncover and dangers to confront. With a renewed sense of purpose, we walked away from the Blackwood Manor, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For in a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural was often blurred, it was up to men like us to stand as the last line of defense against the darkness. And as we disappeared into the bustling streets of Salem, the town slowly began to heal, its residents unaware of the sacrifices that had been made to keep them safe. But we knew the truth, and we were prepared to confront whatever dangers the future might hold. For Morgana's revenge had been thwarted, but our battle against the darkness was only just beginning. The sun rose over Salem, casting a warm, golden light across the town. The air was crisp, and the scent of autumn leaves filled the air. After our final confrontation with Morgana's spirit and the destruction of the cursed mirror, there was a palpable sense of relief and hope. The dark cloud that had hung over Salem for so long had been lifted, and the town could finally begin to heal. Elliot, Abigail, Elara, and I stood together in the town square, taking in the peaceful scene around us. The townspeople went about their daily routines, unaware of the sacrifices that had been made to keep them safe. But we knew the truth, and we were ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold. "We did it," Elliot said, his voice filled with a sense of accomplishment. "Morgana's influence is finally gone." Abigail nodded, her expression one of quiet determination. "We couldn't have done it without each other. This town is safe because of our combined efforts." Elara stepped forward, her eyes filled with wisdom and calm. "The balance between light and dark has been restored, but our work is far from over. There are still many mysteries to uncover and dangers to confront. We must remain vigilant." As we stood there, the bond between us felt stronger than ever. We had faced incredible challenges and emerged victorious, and our shared experiences had forged a powerful connection. We knew that we could rely on each other no matter what the future held. Later that day, we gathered at Abigail's home for a quiet celebration. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, filled with the comforting sense of home-cooked food and the sound of laughter. Elara and members of her coven joined us, their presence a reminder of the powerful allies we had gained along the way. "To victory," Elliot said, raising his glass, "and to the strength and courage of our friends." We clinked our glasses together, the sound a symbol of our unity and determination. We knew that this was just one battle in a larger war, but for now we allowed ourselves to revel in our success. As the evening wore on, we shared stories and laughter, the weight of the past few weeks beginning to lift. For the first time in what felt like forever, we allowed ourselves to relax and enjoy the moment. But even as we celebrated, I couldn't shake the feeling that our work was far from over. The world was full of mysteries and dangers, and we would need to be ready to face whatever came next. Later that night, as I stood on the porch and looked out at the town, Elliot joined me. The cool breeze carried the scent of pine and earth, a reminder of the natural beauty that surrounded us. "We've come a long way, Miguel," Elliot said, his voice thoughtful. "But I can't help but wonder what's next. I nodded, my mind racing with possibilities. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. We've proven that we can handle anything, as long as we stick together. Elliot smiled, a sense of calm and resolve in his eyes. You're right, and we'll be ready for whatever comes our way. As we stood there, side by side, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination. We had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but our journey was far from over. There were still countless mysteries to uncover and dangers to confront. In the days that followed, we began to piece our lives back together. Elliot and I returned to our roles as detectives, ready to tackle the challenges that lay ahead. Abigail continued her work as a historian, uncovering the hidden stories of Salem's past. Alara and her coven remained close, offering their guidance and support whenever we needed it. One crisp morning, as we walked through the town square, we noticed a group of children playing near the old oak tree. Their laughter filled the air, a reminder of the innocence and hope that had been restored to Salem. The town had faced its darkest fears and emerged stronger for it, and we knew that this was just the beginning of a new era. Elliot turned to me, his eyes filled with determination. We need to stay vigilant, Miguel. There are still dark forces out there, waiting for their chance to strike. But we've proven that we can face anything, as long as we stand together. I nodded in agreement, my heart filled with resolve. You're right, Elliot. We'll face whatever comes our way, and we'll do it together. As we continued our walk, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope and optimism. The challenges we had faced had only made us stronger, and I knew that we were ready to confront whatever the future might hold. For in a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural was often blurred, it was up to men like us to stand as the last line of defense against the darkness. And with our friends and allies by our side, we knew that we could face any challenge and emerge victorious. And so, as the sun set over Salem, casting a warm glow across the town, we prepared for the adventures that lay ahead. With hearts full of courage and determination, we embraced the dawn of a new era, ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold.